Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being the show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode. Let's break it down. We're literally picking up where season 6's finale left off, and it's like, wait, what do we do about this Coulson thing? And just without thought, Daisy hits the button, brings him back, and it's like, whoa, he's like, whoa, why is no one saying anything? And it's like, okay, so this Coulson is specifically the Coulson that was uploaded into the framework. So this is literally season 4 Coulson, who has not experienced everything since escaping the framework, everything in season 5 and everything in, well, obviously he wouldn't experience everything in season 6 because that wasn't him, but still, it's like this, that's so, and it's so interesting. I was like, oh, so basically, obviously he's an LMD, but he's made from like, you know, chronocom technology, and they're like, wait, what's going on? And just like Daisy kind of is blunt with it, it's like, there's no beating around the bush with it, you're an LMD, and he's like, wait, that can't be, what? But then suddenly, like, everything that's happened for the past 2 seasons, he gets jumped into his head, and it's like, wait, what? I died, you know. And once again, Coulson has and that was the thing, Coulson has always made it clear he didn't want to come back again. He didn't want to come back the first time with the whole like Tahiti project, and you know, so, but it was like that was kind of forced upon him. He was literally, please don't do this, just let me die. So now, but they kind of need him, so it's a situation of, well, we kind of need you, but obviously he ends up like short-circuiting because basically he's having like a very existential crisis, which is interesting because LMDs kind of have shown to kind of have that a little bit, because like, especially when we look at the May LMD, because she wanted to be the real May so bad, you know, so it's almost that type of thing, but it's more so like, wait, I'm not real, because it's coming to terms with who he really is and what he is. It's like, wait, you know, like I said, legitimate existential crisis. He's breaking down like, wait, am I even alive? Like, do I even, like, he's trying to figure out like what about me is normal? Like, wait, what? Max shuts him down, and Simmons is like, no, he needs to go through it, but Max is like, shut up. LMD stuff is like the director's business, so I'm going to be the one who gets final say on this. So Jim kind of breaks down and fully explains everything. It's like the Chromicons went back in time. They're basically trying to destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is the last line of defense of making it, stopping them from completely taking over this world. So to make sure they destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. completely, they basically are trying to undo S.H.I.E.L.D. But for whatever reason, they went to 1930. But it's like, why? S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't get made until 1950. So it's like, why go back this far? And because even Jim was like, we didn't plan on going this far back. You know, and it's interesting because I also love, they kind of skate around it a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting. They don't go too much in details about their time travel rules. Because obviously, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of away from the main continuity MCU. They're kind of doing their own thing because it's like because they would have to kind of abide to like end games rules, and they want to keep within the continuity of the MCU of like their explanation for time travel, because there's already someone who created time travel, so now you're kind of doing your own, so that's why you kind of have to just separate it in your mind, like, you know. So but basically, what was it, I forgot what they called it. Jim was like, Fitz gave it a specific name, these like crucial points in time of like these certain points in time you can like hit. And that's like what they're doing, because obviously we saw it in the preview and we saw it in the trailer, but the Chromicons stealing cops' faces, and you're like, well, what's the purpose of that? Like, that's why I was like, is this supposed to be like a lone game, you impersonating it? But it's like, no, it's kind of like, it is a short-term plan. I mean, we'll kind of, you know, break it down as it comes, but it is a situation of like, hey, this is our workspace and everything. Like, those of you who haven't met Enoch, this is Enoch. So it's a situation of, okay, we're going to have to, you know, go around in 1930s. They end up like, Mac ends up booting Coulson back up, and he's just kind of like, yeah, like literally 2 years of information being downloaded in 10 seconds. It's kind of like a lot and everything. And obviously, it's like, this isn't what I wanted. And it just kind of, even bringing up the fact is, well, you know, is this what you kind of wanted either? And it's just like, because I love that, you know, Coulson brings up the fact is, Mac hates robots. So this isn't the most, the best situation for him. I love that became a thing, like that, like how much Mac, and especially like he always kept bringing up like, well, the machines are going to take over and stuff like that. His distaste for machines become more and more apparent, like every season, like made more and more of a bit of it. I love that. But nevertheless, it is a situation of like he's necessary. So it's like, you know, it's kind of a thing of like Coulson's willing to kind of, you know, trust in them, because like despite how he might 100% feel about it, Mac is like, I trust my team, and if they believe this is what's necessary, then that's okay. And Coulson is like, basically, we'll kind of reevaluate all of this at the end of the day. So it's a situation of like, okay, so for now, Deke went out to get them some clothes and stuff like that. I forgot what that whole thing was, right? Because they found out, it's like, because like he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm a, basically he's going to blend it, but it's like the last time you try to blend into the past, you end up getting, super drunk and stuff like that. He was like, well, I basically trying to say I didn't get super drunk, and Daisy's like, you don't got to worry about it. Alcohol this is the 1930s, so alcohol has been, it's prohibition. And he's like, who thought that was a good idea? And it's also like, because I love that he kept being like, I feel like I'm being singled out here, because they were like, don't mess with time too much. And he's like, I feel like I'm being singled out. This coming from the guy who stole a whole bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. tech and also stuff from what is essentially the framework from the future, and applying it modern day, making yourself super rich. So of course, why wouldn't how dare the team judge you or something like, it's just interesting. So obviously they're going undercover. And it's interesting because, like, obviously Daisy is like, well, what if we do the whole thing of, like, the butterfly effect, which obviously, I forgot what it was exactly that Deke referred to it as, but essentially it's like, instead of worrying about, like, every little thing changing things for him, it's like throwing a stick in the water. Like, the stick, like, the water kind of stays the same after a while. It might cause some ripples, but generally it's fine until you throw a whole bunch of sticks in and it becomes, like, it turns into a whole full-blown dam. So basically it breaks down to make ripples, not waves. But to be fair, even ripples eventually turn into waves given enough time. So, it's still kind of a thing of like, I want to be careful with time and stuff like that. But nevertheless, they split up. They go to the crime scene and everything, and they end up finding out, like, obviously the Chromicons stole some, and like they're pretending to be like, was it from Canada, officers from Canada, and it's like, oh, what are the Mounties doing here? It's like, wait, these bodies without faces? Yeah, that always happens in Canada. I'm loving that you're making that like seem like, oh, that's faces on bodies with no faces. Canada. Also interesting too, like the no faces thing heavily reminds me of Teen Wolf, the final season of Teen Wolf. The main monster in the final season of Teen Wolf would like steal people, kind of do a similar thing. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the what is it? That horror thing, Slenderman. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But there was an enemy in that could kind of do that same thing, which is interesting when you think about it, because the actor who played the monster, kind of its human form, is what is it? Renezi's, I'm butchering his name. He's the actor who played Alex in Marvel's Runaway. So it's just interesting with me making that comparison. I mean, in that that thought process, I just thought that was kind of interesting. But regardless, tangents and all that. So now the team's kind of splitting up. Mac and Coulson go looking into like, I was like, oh wait, this delivery, they see what is it, like it's like a swordfish, and it's supposed to be like, oh, it's a code about getting into a club that's basically so like a underground thing that's kind of associated with S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that to a certain extent. So it's like connected to like the SSR, which eventually becomes we'll get to it, but I love that basically Deke has to like stab the bodies to kind of get mapping of their face and stuff like that, and Daisy's like, is it can you go faster? He's like, oh, like the fact this thing has to like map DNA and also like create fake bone structure, but yeah, it could, if you wanted to go faster, it'll go faster. He was kind of getting a little snarky, which I think is interesting, because Deke in the past would never, I feel like he would never talk like that to Daisy, because he has the hugest crush on Daisy. But I guess since everything between him, and we never circle back to that, the whole him and wasn't it Snowflake? Wasn't that her name? Never circle back to like 100% whatever. Like she was just kind of arrested one episode and we never saw her again. So that's a whole thing. But nevertheless. But I also love that this episode involved like Coulson like fanboying a lot, because to be fair, it's like, especially because this is all connected to S.H.I.E.L.D's history and he's like the biggest S.H.I.E.L.D. fanboy, so like obviously like he's enjoying all of this and just kind of like, oh man, kind of like, obviously this is kind of like the spy stuff that they kind of normally do, going undercover and stuff like that. They go in a bar, they're looking for someone named Gemini. Everyone in the bars draws out guns, and it's just like, dude, one more step and you're dead. And Coulson's like, you're right, and Mac is like, I'm not. And so Coulson was like, oh, let's test this out. He gets shot, and he's like, oh, holy crap, this LMD thing might not be that bad after all. After him and, mainly Mac ended up kicking the other guys' asses. And so it's a situation of, like, then we see Patton Oswalt. It's like, I was wondering, like, in what shape or form he was going to be in this episode. But it's like, oh, here's Koenig. And it's like, oh, like, I guess a distant ancestor that the others are, So it's like, okay. So that's interesting. And it's just interesting, like, considering what the others are like, to find out, like, oh, you're kind of, like, obviously this time it's like, oh, this Koenig is a douchebag compared to, like, the Koenigs we kind of known, who kind of a little, like, silly and whatnot. So it's just interesting to see that, comparison. But I love, it's just kind of a thing of, like, it's a mutual interest. Like, your venture is being messed with, so is ours. So we're just trying to find the bad guys in this situation. When Daisy ended up fighting one of those Chronicons, and I love her ending it with like a Quake uppercut, was pretty badass. Boom! I was like, that's pretty sick. Luckily, Deke and them were able to get out of there, escaping with him. At the same time, there's everything with, like, Enoch. We see him working on May, which is like, okay, so May hasn't had to deal with the immediate realization about, like, what's going on, like, with Coulson. Obviously, throughout the episode, she hasn't gotten a chance to kind of deal with that, which is like, that's going to be hard on her, because it's like, she's the one that ran into, like, obviously it wasn't Coulson last season, but she's the one that ran into quote-unquote Coulson last season. She was the first one, so, like, that obviously hit her hard, because obviously anyone she ended up being, she knew Coulson the longest. Like, obviously they fell in love, and she was there when he died, so, like, it hit her. So seeing him now is going to probably hit her even harder, so it's just like, especially after everything, it's like, well, especially under the circumstances, the last time you saw him too, he wasn't himself, because obviously he wasn't Coulson, so it's a whole nasty, I mean, let's not forget, technically he is Coulson. He was a copy of Coulson's body, but obviously not Coulson personality, and just who Coulson was at his core. But you have Yo-Yo being like, oh, like, can we really trust him? And she's like, Enoch, yeah, he's with us. It's like, yeah, you say he's a good guy and everything, but these are his people trying to wipe us out. But there's also the thing of, like, the Shrike is, breaking apart in her system, so she doesn't have to worry about it coming, flaring back up, so she's happy about that. But I also love that it's like, hey, also, you can't really be going out and about with your metal arms and everything. Here, we're giving you the Coulson treatment, which is interesting, because that was the first thing Coulson was like, oh, my hand, it feels weird. So I was like, right, that's what I was like, right, no more mechanical arm either. But Yo-Yo has, like, she's Coulson, twofold. Obviously, at first, she doesn't want it, because her arms are a reminder of what she did and what she's done, and, so, like, it's a reminder that she doesn't want to forget, like, why she has those arms, and she doesn't want to cover them up or be ashamed of them in any shape or form. But, like, it's like, no, but, like, when's the last time you actually felt anything with your fingertips? And we see her kind of putting them on and everything, and just kind of feeling for the first time. And it's like, that's got to be the wildest thing, especially because you've probably gone so long without that sensation, to kind of finally have it back like that, because it's an even bigger enhancement than the one that Coulson had previously. So. But obviously they end up finding out this has to deal with FDR, because apparently FDR he eventually starts, was it the SSR, and basically that's what eventually led to S.H.I.E.L.D. So they're thinking, like, take him out, then they take out S.H.I.E.L.D. essentially. So they go to, protect them. Obviously Gemma ends up hijacking, like, basically taking the Chronicon they have, and basically overloads his brain like they were doing Coulson. Basically, there's so much stuff flooding his head, he won't be able to kind of, like, divert from telling the truth. He won't be able to lie, essentially. And she keeps pushing, and even I'm like, wow. I mean, to be fair, we've seen over the course of the series that Gemma definitely has, like, a darker side, when push comes to shove. Especially for her, because it's like everything rides on this. Like, literally the future of humanity rides on this. So no more, like, the gloves are off. Plus, also, she's away from Fitz. Even, like, Yo-Yo was like, aren't you gonna, like, contact me? She's like, no, we can't, we have to be apart, because we can't take the chance that Chronicons might be listening. And she's like, well, you both are used to, being separate in space and time. And she's like, yeah, it's a lot, but we've sadly gotten used to this over the course of the series. And it's like, it is sad that destiny always rips these two apart. But obviously even death wasn't enough to keep them apart, so it is a situation, though, of because Daisy had asked, like, how long has it been since we actually saw each other? And she's like, a fairly long time. So it's like, a lot of shit had to have going down because, like, even Gemma, like, she shifted, like, just like her demeanor and everything is not the same as a Gemma we've typically known. So it has to be like, I wouldn't say months. It's probably been years. We'll probably find out soon enough, but or maybe that's just a timetable they don't want to really go over too much. It's just kind of like leave it, very vague and ambiguous, like, the time frame. But still, the fact that Gemma, like I said, would go to that extremes and torture. I mean, like I said, it's interesting. And once again, it's like, is that just because, obviously, like I said, Gemma can have her dark side when push comes to shove, or is it just because she's changed over the course of the years, and maybe that's something we'll see more and more? And even Enoch, I'm surprised that can be the easiest thing, because it's like, yeah, that's your people. Like, obviously, you've chosen humanity, but this is still your people you're fighting against, so it's a complicated thing. Even to the point later on when Home Dude melts down, his skin starts cracking, and he like literally melts. It's like, that's got to be the hardest thing to see. But for now, Enoch seems like he's okay with it. But we'll see eventually what ends up happening with that. But while everyone, like, I love also Coulson made, like, it's like, oh, like they're like, oh, they were referencing FDR, and he was like, oh yeah, that's the deal, and then no one says anything. He was like, sorry, he's like, got it. Sorry, dad joke. It was a glitch. But obviously, Daisy's worse. She's like, is that, how is he? He's like, well, he seems like Coulson. It's, obviously took a shot, like, because of the LMD thing, but, like, you would know better than anyone. So she goes over to talk to him, and she apologized because she's like, I had the opportunity to see you again. So, like, I smashed that button, like, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy that it just kind of came down to a button. But it is a complicated thing of, like, obviously this isn't what he wanted, but he understands why Daisy did what she did, because it's like, for him, it's like, yeah, I realize that I'm dead, and it's that hard realization, and it's a lot to kind of take in. And she talks about the letter. Well, he knows about the letter too, and she was like, well, don't get a big head about it, but it was a really good letter. You should read it sometime. He's like, I think I will. But I also love the fact that he was like, look at us here. He's like, this LMD thing might not be too bad, because the whole thing was also like, well, can you drink? He's like, I don't know, can I? I think they can. Like, it's just, I mean, like, I don't think they're going to, like, short circuit or anything, because they're very different from just, like, a robot. But the fact of the matter is, he's like, the fact is, I look good, you look great, we're superheroes and everything. But it turns, and I also like that he got to shake FDR's hand and helped him out. It's like, oh my God, because, like I said, he's fanboying, he's a history dude anyway. But it's like, it's so interesting. It's almost sad, too, because you're like, the real Coulson didn't get to do that, though. I mean, to be fair, the real Coulson did get the time travel. He went to the future. It's interesting, but that LMD Coulson gets to go to the past, so it's interesting like that. So who kind of won in the instance? I'd say probably LMD Coulson, because he got to go to the past and shake FDR's hand and meet him. That's what I think about it. But then it's like, at first they think it's FDR who's the target, but then you find out, no, it's Freddy. But it's like, wait, random Freddy we met? It's like, oh yeah, because like him and Deke bonded over the fact that both of them lost their dads. But when it was all said and done, it's like, wait, like Freddy's meeting with someone, she wants him to do a job, it's like connected to his father, and then they find out, like, wait, his last name's Moloch, and it's like, wait, what? Freddy, his dad eventually becomes the head of Hydra, and it becomes the thing that we learned in the trailer. Okay, so set to save S.H.I.E.L.D, we have to save Hydra. Has to be the suckiest thing, as I talked about in this in my discussion about the trailer, but that has to be the suckiest thing, because obviously, if it wasn't for Hydra hiding within S.H.I.E.L.D, wouldn't be where it is today. So it's like, you need that, because eventually you basically wouldn't even have the Avengers either. Like, if you want to get really technical about it, it's an angle they're not going to touch on. But I mean, obviously, like, Captain America came about because I mean, hell, even S.H.I.E.L.D came about because of, like, Peggy and, Steve. So it's like, they probably won't go that far just because they're like, no, let's stay away a little bit from the MCUs. We can reference and kind of pull from it, but we can't go too, I mean, this is kind of established history for the MCU, so they can kind of do that, but you get what I mean? So, and then there's also the thing at the end where Enoch comes back and it's like, oh wait, May's going, and he's like, oh great, Enoch, you had one job and you lost her. And we see May's woken up, but it's like, it seems like she's not just herself. So it's like, okay, so what's that about? So that's going to be one thing I got to handle, while also dealing with, like, the Chronicons in 31, and also like, you know, basically helping Hydra. It's like, who knows, because apparently that Freddy's supposed to take those vials to like a to one of like to the docks or something like that. But it's like, what is that going to do? Who knows? But it's just kind of interesting. Because the thing is, Freddy doesn't know his, which is interesting because, like, well, he said it said his dad died. So, well, you know. So, but I mean, no, because it's like, no, it's not Freddy. Well, Freddy's dad was a part of it, but like, it's his son that eventually becomes the head of Hydra. Isn't that what that was actually implying? I think that's what they were saying, and I completely messed that up. Sorry. But nevertheless, I'm interested to see, because like I said, the trailer kind of showed you a little stuff from this season out of context, and it seems like they're just going to stay in this time period and eventually return to the future. Or I don't know, maybe there's going to be like more time traveling involved, going to other, because obviously it's all about pulling certain strings to kind of unravel what is S.H.I.E.L.D. You can't just like do one thing because of the way time flows and everything. It's going to be, you need to go to critical moments in S.H.I.E.L.D's history to kind of unravel it. And this was like basically destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. before it even has a chance to be born. You know, you have to strike in a very precise way, and it's like by making sure that Hydra didn't get made, you're ensuring that neither does S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, so a lot of interesting things in this episode. Kind of a very like nice starter to the season. I'm interested to see, obviously, once again, final season and all that. I'm interested to kind of see how they end up wrapping everything up. But obviously, that's later on down the line. We still got quite a bit of time before we get to the end. So let's enjoy the ride. So I'm very interested to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.